You're listening to the Fierce Fatty Podcast, episode 93, being fat and disabled or with a chronic condition. Let's do it.
Perfect.
I'm Victoria Wellesby, TEDx speaker, best-selling author and fat activist. I have transformed my life from hating my body with desperately low self-esteem to being a courageous and confident, fierce fatty who loves every inch of this jelly. Society teaches us living in a fat body is bad, but what if we spent less time, money, and energy on the pursuit of thinness and instead focused on the things that actually matter, like if pineapple on pizza should be outlawed, or if the mullet was the greatest haircut of the 20th century. So, how do you stop negative beliefs about your fat body controlling your life? It's the Fierce Fatty Podcast. Let's begin. Bonjour, hello, welcome to this episode. Hey, if you listen to episode 92, oh my gosh, what a nightmare. I want to apologize about the sound and if you watch the video, the video. I was like, what is it? What is the name of the video? The visual and the audio. I had such a palaver, you would not believe. So I record on two different devices just in case the other one fails. And so my laptop records, mainly it's the audio because I plug in my mic to that and then also records the video. And then I have my phone, which records the video, I use the video from my phone because it's better than the video from my Mac, my brand new Mac. The video is awful from it. Anyway, and then if the audio fails on my laptop, then I still have the audio from my phone. Well, guess what? Last podcast, both failed at different times, and I didn't realize it until the end. And so my video on my laptop was frozen because I'm not looking at the video while I'm recording. I'm looking at my notes, and so I press stop record, and then I'm like, why is it frozen? And then I looked at my phone and I was like, why is it black? And my phone had just stopped recording too. I was like, what the fuck? What are the fucking chances of this? And so then I went back and re-recorded parts of the podcast and the end. And guess what? Both of them fucking failed again at different times. And so I've got patches of audio from my phone, patches of audio and video from my laptop, and it's just all over the place. And it was like a really noisy day in the neighborhood, and the birds were screeching, and there was lots of trucks, and so so I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. And I didn't want to record it a third time because it was like a Friday afternoon, and I was like, no, I can't. I just have to send it to my podcast editor and hope that they work some magic. So maybe you might be like, I don't know what you're talking about, Victoria, it was perfect. Or you might be like, yeah, I heard it and it was shit. I don't want to be like, there's this one podcast I used to listen to all the time. It was this murder podcast, and it was this Canadian guy. I can't remember the name of it. It's like a really popular one, but I stopped listening to it because he would interview guests on like a house phone. I knew it was a house phone because you know the sound you can hear when a cord is straining, and then the guests would often be on a house phone too, and the audio was so shit. It was absolutely hilarious, like hilariously bad, and all the reviews for the podcast would be like, May, buy a mic, like you've got a podcast that's getting listened to by hundreds and thousands of people, buy a $30 mic, really, please, we'll buy one for you. And he was just like, whatever, I just like the low quality of it. But yeah, I don't like the low quality of, I want you to be able to listen and not be distracted by, shitty audio. Anyway, so I've got my fan running right now, and so I'm like, I hope you can't hear the fan too much, because it's HAWTTT again in Vancouver. So I got a haircut. Oh, my haircut palavers. My friends at the dog park were making fun of me because, my last haircut, it went absolutely hilariously bad. If you saw the pictures on Instagram, I need to put them up and put like haircut saga, because I've had so many hair disasters, from when I first shaved my head, dyeing my scalp dark purple and it not coming off for days, and having to then re-bleach my head, my skin, to get it off, from this new hairdresser that's just absolutely wild with, I don't know, they don't know symmetry anyway. And so my friends at the dog park were making fun of me and said, okay, you need to go to this actual proper salon, because the thing is, I've got a problem with paying $200 every 2 months to cut my hair. That's the thing with short hair, is you think, oh, short hair, it's like no problem, you don't have to do anything with it, you can just wake up and then that's it. But no, because you have to get a fucking haircut every 12 seconds, and then if you dye your hair, then that's $1 billion. And so I'm like, I can handle every 6 months paying $200 to $300 for a haircut, but every 2 months I'm like, oh, can't I just go to like a barber and get it done for like $15 or $20 or whatever? Anyway, and so I went to this proper salon, voted the best in Vancouver, but don't worry, it's not too expensive. My haircut was $60, and then with tip was $80, something like that. And anyway, and so the haircut was fine. It was fine. It was a competent haircut. I wasn't having water sprayed on my back like the other hairdresser. I wasn't getting randomly dyed brown blobs on the back of my head like the other hairdresser. I wasn't being given tight ringlet perm curls like another anyway. It was a competent haircut, but I experienced like gender dysphoria, because I don't know if you've not listened to the episode, but last month I came out as non-binary, and so I'm like a baby non-binary in the world, experiencing and feeling and noticing how things make me feel, and working out what to do about it, because the hairdresser perceived me as a woman, right? I look pretty feminine. I'm a woman in people's eyes, and in my brain I'm like, I'm non-binary. And so first thing I said, oh, this is the haircut I want, and I showed her a picture, and the back of the person's hair was really short, like shaved, like maybe a 0, and then fading up to maybe like a 4 or something, and so maybe fading up to a centimeter's length, and then at the top lots of longish hair. And she was like, oh yeah, fine. And then when we got back from the beautiful head massage that she gave me, she was like, oh, actually, instead of shaving, why don't I just use scissors and feather it, because I think it would look even better. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. And then throughout the haircut, I realized that the reason why she didn't want to shave it is because feathering with her scissors would make it look more feminine. And she talked a lot about, oh, this is going to look really feminine and things like that. And I was so kind of like, I don't know what to say, because I'm new at this, right? It's like, I guess how a lot of people feel when they experience fat phobia out in the wild, and they're new to not tolerating fat phobia, and so the first times that happens, they're like, yeah, oh, LOL, fat people, or whatever, And so that's what I kind of felt like. I didn't want to be like, oh, actually, I'm non-binary and I don't want a feminine haircut, and I was just like, and then thinking, well, if she gives me the haircut that I want, then it's fine. It doesn't matter if she thinks it looks feminine. And at the end of it, she was like, oh, you look like a brand new woman, and look, I've made it like this so it's more feminine. And I was just like, oh god, because I really don't like any type of length on the bottom of my hair. Like, I want it to be no hair at the bottom, like around the ears and at the bottom of your hairline. I don't want any. And I was saying to her during the haircut, like, oh, I can't wait for you to cut my hair, because I hate feeling any hair at the back of my neck or around my ears. I just want it completely gone. And and it's still long. And so in those moments, I couldn't stand up for myself. And it wasn't, she's not being rude, right? You know, a lot of times people who violate a boundary, they're not being rude. And so sometimes it can be hard to be like, listen up here, motherfucker. Whereas, you know, like with fatphobic stuff, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not, you know, because I'm so well versed of it, and I'm still new at this gender stuff, and so I've come up with a solution. So next time I get a haircut, I'm going to go back to this place because, you know, it was nice. It was nice. It wasn't too expensive. I'm going to, when I make my appointment over the phone, I'm going to say, my name is Victoria, and my pronouns are they, them, and I am non-binary. Can you let the hairdresser know that? And then just in case that they don't, you know, make a note of it or whatever, when I arrive at the hairdresser's, I'm just going to say, oh, sorry, I forgot to ask, what are your pronouns? And then the hairdresser will say she, her, whatever. And I'll say, oh, cool, mine are they, them, I'm non-binary. And then I'm going to start then a conversation about what that means to me and why I don't want to look feminine and things like that. So that's my thing. And so I think that's what I'm going to try and do is in my mind just normalize asking pronouns, because it should be normal anyway to ask pronouns. And I'm fucking up right now by saying she as a hairdresser. I didn't ask their pronouns. I'm just presuming, because of what my eyeballs told me, that the hairdresser identifies as a woman. I don't know, right? I'm doing the same thing. And then I'm complaining that they perceive me as a woman. Anyway, so I'm going to see how that goes. Also, I had like some dysphoria looking at gender dysphoria, looking at, there was a podcast that I did maybe a month ago when it was like the hottest weather that's ever been in the world, right in my living room. I wore a pink dress to record the podcast, and you can only see like the top straps of it. But seeing the video on my Instagram, I did like a little audiogram of the video, really, I was just like, ugh. Not ugh at me and my looks, but ugh at seeing me in this literally pink frilly dress. It's literally a pink frilly dress. And I bought that fucking dress because doing online dating unsuccessfully, doing online dating and thinking, what if a cis het guy asks me on a date? I don't have anything pink or frilly to convince him that I'm feminine. Even though I don't want to be perceived as feminine, I want to say, oh, look at me, I'm so dainty, and oh, I'm so much of a woman, and you don't need to be afraid of me, like, even though I'm non-binary, I'm just a woman, really, and you know, like, man, what? Why? And I'm just realizing, like, oh, Victoria. And that's the thing, is a big thing that I'm struggling with non-binariness is the way that I'm perceived by cis het men. Like, the idea of me embracing my non-binary status is going to, like, that's the final straw. That's it. No cis het man is ever going to find me attractive ever again. Because I've turned into this thing that's really gross, you know, like, I've embraced my fatness, and so shouldn't I be ashamed of my fatness? And I've got short hair, and shouldn't I want to be feminine and have long hair? And now I'm like, oh, I'm non-binary, and I don't want to wear that pink frilly dress, you know, today or whatever. And shouldn't I just at least make up for the fact that I'm fat with short hair and blah 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 by wearing a pink frilly dress? And by the way, you know, I when I say make up for, I don't think that having short hair or being fat are bad things, but I'm thinking about the way that some cis het men might perceive me, you know. And so this is all my own shit. It's fucking transphobia and fatphobia are all mixed together for me to be like, I need to buy a pink frilly dress so that there's non-existent, because I don't have a date coming up, cishet man is going to be like, oh, this is a woman, even though I'm not, and I don't want to be perceived as a woman. Oh Lord. So anyway, I was watching a cool video last night about non-binary stuff, and one of the things that they said is trying out, because I was feeling, like this, when I say dysphoria, like it feels like just yuckiness of that's the word I want to use, like yucky, like blur, like it's just wrong, it something feels wrong. Like seeing me in a dress, like it might be like if you dress in a certain way, seeing you dressed totally different that's not you. And it's not like I've not worn dresses before, of course, like I've many, but this dress was like particularly feminine. Anyway, so and so the two non-binary, this also non-binary lesbian couple made this video. I just went and bought a sticker from the Etsy site, a they them holographic sticker. I'm like, where am I going to stick it? Oh my god. Anyway, so they were saying about a little tip about trying a new name. So, my name's Victoria, but actually, do you know what? Most of my life, I have been known as Vinny. And this might be news to you because I've always just referred to myself as Victoria. And coming to Canada, I fell out of calling myself Victoria because, calling myself Vinny because in England, there's a kind of culture of saying, oh, what's your name? Like say if you're in a work setting, what's your name, Victoria? Okay, what do you go by? And so it's really common for people to say, but what do you go by? Like, and so if I said my name was Victoria, say, if I was applying for a job, I'd be like, my name's Victoria, but I go by Vinny. And so everyone would call me Vinny. And loads of people have nicknames in the UK, right? It's really, really normal. And so when I came here, it wasn't, I was like, oh, I don't want to be unprofessional and have a nickname because no one else has nicknames here. And so I kind of just started just referring to myself as Victoria. And I'd think, oh, my younger non-binary brain knew that Vinny was more me, because my nickname, I chose a nickname. I was the one who came up with a nickname. And so obviously I wanted something that was, it's not a woman's name, right? Vinny, Vinny, Vinny. Well, maybe it is in some places, but Vinny is traditionally a man's name, and I chose that as my nickname. And so, anyway, one of the tips they said is that when you're ordering coffee, try out this name and see how it feels. It's like low stakes trying out this. And so that's what I'm going to do. Next time I go and get coffee, I'm going to say Vinny and see what it sounds like when they say Vinny. Yeah, and so and as well, I like variations of Vinny, like so many, like even my boyfriends when I was in the UK would call me Vinny, or one boyfriend would call me V-Dog, or there was V-Double-licious, or Vincenzo Mozzarella, or just V-Dub. I think V-Dub is like the kind of the one that I'm like most like, because V-Dub as in my last name's Wellesby, so dub as in W. So maybe V-Dub is the, I don't know. But then I'm like, no, you can't have that. That's not professional. Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll be changing my name. Maybe not. Maybe people who are close to me will call me Vinny or V-Dub or whatever, V-Double-licious. Maybe people who don't know me will call me that, but then people who do know me will call me Victoria. We'll see. Or maybe I'll hear it and I'll be like, oh, no thanks. Yeah. So on the flip side of that, having that dysphoria of people perceiving me as a woman, in this time, in this month or two that I've been out as non-binary, I've heard people refer to me as they, and it's so affirming. Like I did this course, and the course, the person leading the course was like, Victoria, they did this, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, Oh my God. It's like they see me and respect me, and it feels like for years I've been using the wrong name, and then, as in she, her, and they, them, like I've been using the wrong name, and finally someone's called me the right name, and someone says my correct name, and it's like, oh, it feels great. It feels really cool. So yeah, so there's some gender updates for you. What's going on with my non-binary exploration, fun times. But I looked this time, and I managed to spot it crashing. Not on my laptop, QuickTime. I don't know what the fuck is this problem, man. Like, this is a new freaking MacBook Air that I bought in January. It's August now. And I'm having to go to my old laptop that is 5-6 years old to record videos. Like, what the heck? I need to, I don't know what is wrong with it. Let me just take it to the Apple store. But like, I'm mad. Well, my phone hasn't failed, and that is also new. Bought in January. This is the stuff when I got back to Vancouver. Anyway, this episode is about being fat and also disabled or with a chronic condition, living with a chronic condition. And so let's talk about that juicy stuff. So in case you're not familiar, chronic condition, what that is, Wikipedia says a chronic condition is a human health condition or disease that is persistent or otherwise long-lasting in its effects, or a disease that comes with time. The term chronic is often applied when the course of the disease lasts for more than 3 months. And so some examples of conditions: arthritis, asthma, celiac disease, Crohn's disease, cystic fibrosis, depression, diabetes, EDS, epilepsy, heart disease, HIV/AIDS, IBS, lupus, multiple sclerosis, schizophrenia, ulcerative colitis. So I've got depression, IBS, asthma. Yeah, that's it from that list. Anyway, and there's lots. That's not it. There's lots of different things, and so yeah. So a lot of the time, I want to talk about this because I see this coming up again and again and again with clients who are living with a chronic condition or a disability, and them struggling with the idea of, why can't I just love my body? I've followed the advice and I've appreciated the things that my body is doing for me versus the way it looks, and I just don't like it. And the advice of just love your body when your body doesn't do the things that you want it to do is not helpful advice. It's not helpful advice. And the idea of, yeah, you might be disabled or have a chronic condition, but just appreciate what it can do. At least it's keeping you alive. That's not helpful either. It's given me really kind of gaslighty vibes, being like, just appreciate what it can do, and just love it. Just love it. Come on now. It reminds me of people giving shitty apologies. Like when we hear internet scandals. Oh, I fucking love an internet scandal, don't you? When people give really shitty apologies and they're like, I'm so sorry you were offended. And the apology is so shitty because they don't understand why what they did was fucked up or whatever. And they aren't acknowledging the hurt that they've caused. And they're not saying, oh, I'm going to try and be better or whatever. And so that's what it feels like to me. Like, it's like, oh, I'm so sorry you're mad. Just get over it. And it kind of feels like, just get over it. Just go on, fucking just love your body already. God, just, why are you still complaining about this? And it's like, well, I'm still complaining because I don't feel like you're, that this is resolved, Oh, I spent so many years trying to forgive people in my family for shitty behavior when they were still doing the shitty behavior. And for years I'd be like, oh, why can't I just forgive them? And one day my therapist said was like, well, because they're still doing fucking shitty stuff and they've never apologized in the first place. So how are you meant to be the bigger person and be like, you know what, I'm just going to let it go when they're still behaving badly against you? Yeah. So as well, if you have multiple things going on, and so if you have like one chronic condition, or if you have two or three, and you're disabled and you're fat and other things are going on, other marginalized identities, and we have to contend with a fatphobic society too. Like, what the fuck? That is so hard. That is so hard to deal with that stuff, wrestling with the messages we're hearing from the outside world, which is ableist and fatphobic and all kinds of fucked up, and then trying to convince yourself internally, like, don't listen to all of those messages, and then having the experience of your body being like, LOL, I'm gonna do, make you feel like shit. It's no wonder that people are struggling to love and accept, like anything, their bodies when all of that is going on. Like, shit. Oh. And just an FYI, what ableism, I use that word ableism. Wikipedia says ableism is discrimination and social prejudice against people with disabilities and or people who are perceived to be disabled. Ableism characterizes people who are defined by their disabilities as inferior to the non-disabled. So accessliving.org, ableism one-on-one. So I'll give you some examples of what ableism is. What does ableism look like? So, ableism can take many forms, including lack of compliance with disability rights laws like the ADA, segregating students with disabilities into separate schools, the use of restraint or seclusion as a means of controlling students with disabilities, failing to incorporate accessibility into building design plans, buildings without braille on signs, elevator buttons, etc., building inaccessible websites, the assumption that people with disabilities want or need to be fixed, using disability as a punchline or mocking people with disabilities, refusing to provide reasonable accommodations, the eugenics movement of the early 1900s, the mass murder of disabled people in Nazi Germany. And it continues, what about everyday or minor ableism? What does that look like? So everyday ableism looks like choosing an inaccessible venue for a meeting or event, therefore excluding some participants, using someone else's mobility device as a hand or footrest, framing disability as either tragic or inspirational in news stories, movies, and other popular forms of media, casting a non-disabled actor to play a disabled character in a play, movie, TV show, or commercial, making a movie that doesn't have audio description or closed captioning, using the accessible bathroom stall when you're able to use the non-accessible stall without pain or risk of injury, wearing scented products in a scent-free environment, talking to a person with a disability like they are a child, talking about them instead of directly to them or speaking for them, asking invasive questions about their medical history or personal life of someone with a disability, assuming people have a visible disability to actually be disabled, assuming people have to have a visible disability to be actually disabled, questioning if someone is actually disabled or how much they are disabled, asking, how did you become disabled? So that's ableism for you. So we live in an ableist world, and we're ableists. We're ableist. I'm ableist. And so that's another layer, right? That living in a world that is ableist. And so I think that we need to turn towards the idea, like embrace the idea of it sucks. It's not okay. It sucks to have a body that isn't doing the things that you want it to do. And look at that head on. and not try and kind of sweep it under the carpet and be like, oh, I'm just gonna love my body, because it doesn't work. You know, just forcing yourself to be positive when you don't feel that way is probably not very helpful for you. I know it's not helpful for me. And so something that you might want to do is you could write a fuck you letter to your body. Or even like just think about like, what does that, or how does that feel? If you were to write a kind of like, fuck you for making it so that I can't do this and making me feel like this and da-da-da-da, and why can't you just be able-bodied, and why can't, you know, thinking about that or actually doing that, could that be helpful for you? Or writing a fuck you letter to society for being ableist and fatphobic, could that be helpful? You might say, do you know what, actually, I don't want to say fuck you to my body, because it has tried and does help me a lot of times. And that's fine, that's some people's reactions. And sometimes just the idea of writing a fuck you letter is enough for people to be given that permission to feel mad at their bodies. It's okay, right? We don't have to walk around being like, I feel like Beyonce all the time, my body is amazing. Because sometimes, you know, that's not the reality. And for some people, that's not the reality most of the time. So, and as well, we live in a world, even if you are able-bodied, we live in a world that expects humans to be machines, right? Like, our worth and our self-esteem being tied in with how productive we are. For a lot of people, I know for me, being productive gives me lots of self-esteem. Being like working and being reliable, I'm just like, oh, I'm such a good person because of it, to the detriment of my physical and mental health. I'm working on that so hard, but it's so difficult to deprogram yourself about the idea of being a valuable member of society if you take a nap. Like, you're not less of a human being if you're not productive. And actually this week I was speaking to my therapist about this idea. I've got trauma around sleep, and I just realized it, like how a lot of times when I'm sleeping, I'll wake up and my heart is beating really fast, or I'll wake up and I'll be like, ooh, a lot of like maybe 10 different incidences that happened to me while I was asleep that has told my brain that sleeping is not safe. And the other side of it is this deep kind of, it's in my family of work hard. You know, even at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, just keep going until the sun sets, and even then, you know, don't rest, don't relax, because if you don't, then you are less of a person than someone who is not working 24/7. And so this idea of a deep shame that I feel when I sleep, and I have to be on alert of like, why are you sleeping, Victoria? Why are you sleeping when you should be working? And that's even more prominent when I'm having a nap. Like if I'm tired and I need to nap, or I just want to nap, or napping sounds fun, often I'll wake up and be like, oh my God, what have I missed? What didn't I do? I need to get up. Come on, get up and be productive. And that's ableism, right? And like trauma and stuff. So, so why are we, you know, it's hard to be in a society that is telling you fatphobic stuff and telling you ableist stuff and whatever else is going on in your life. If you've got, you know, all of the other cool stuff that's fucked us up as individuals. And on top of that, we have all of these messages that losing weight is going to make us healthy. So, but perhaps you have been told that weight loss is going to relieve symptoms that you might be experiencing. And how can we love a fat body that we have been told is a source of or contributing to our pain? How can we be intuitive eaters when, depending on your condition, certain type of foods are villainized? And even without certain conditions, food is still villainized. In these cases, our internalized fat phobia and ableism is really hammered into us. Thinking kind of like, oh, maybe if I wasn't so lazy and lost weight, I would feel better. You know, maybe if I wasn't so greedy and blah blah blah, then I wouldn't have experienced this. And understandably, a lot of folks will choose to pursue weight loss if they have a chronic condition or disability, if they feel like it could alleviate some symptoms, any symptoms. It is so hard to detangle fat phobia and ableism from what could actually help with symptoms. So here's an example of what I'm talking about with that. An example from Christy Harrison's newsletter that she sent this week, titled, "What About Sugar and Diabetes?" So if you have diabetes, you know, the idea of, well, maybe if I wasn't fat, I wouldn't have it. I would never have got it. I need to lose weight to manage it. I need to not eat sugar to manage it. I ate my way to diabetes. So this is what Christy says. And if you're not subscribed to Christy's newsletter, then what are you even doing with your life? Go to christyharrison.com to subscribe. So for anyone out there who already has diabetes, there's good news. In the words of the 2016 reviews authors, so before this paragraph, Christy was talking about all these different reviews about, does sugar cause, you know, can you have sugar and be diabetic? And the answer is yeah. So now this is, does sugar cause diabetes? So surprisingly, despite a common assumption that sugar must be hazardous for people with type 2 diabetes, the evidence says otherwise. Cutting out, and then continuing, cutting out severely limiting sugar generally isn't advised or needed. And in fact, it could backfire by putting you in a restrict binge cycle that's ultimately riskier for your health than simply learning to have a peaceful and balanced relationship with sugar. Also, an interesting recent small study showed that for people with type 2 diabetes, their glucose responds to perceived sugar intake more than actual sugar intake. Specifically, when participants were given a beverage labeled as being high sugar, their blood glucose levels rose more than when they were given a beverage labeled as being low sugar, even though the drinks were actually identical. This was especially true for people whose eating is governed by external cues rather than internal ones. In fact, the labeling had no effect once the researchers controlled for external eating. This raises the possibility that reading nutrition labels and eating according to external cues may complicate the management of type 2 diabetes. And we know from other research that intuitive eating is associated with better management of the disease regardless of weight. So that stigma that people feel around sugar can be detrimental and is not helpful. Yeah, and so this, before all of this, is like, can you have sugar? And some studies were showing that, in fact, having more sugar was better for people with type 2 diabetes, and some were saying having a little bit less, and some were saying just stick to what you were doing before, right? So the information is kind of like, we don't know. Yeah, so as well here, we have to think about the idea that we blame ourselves and our fatness for our chronic conditions often, not always, or disabilities. So we can blame ourselves, fat people especially, walking around with all that shame. especially if it's if it's perceived in society as a quote unquote fat condition, and so like type 2 diabetes would be one of them, and all of the shame that comes from that, and the "I told you so's" like ringing around your head, of people being like, "Wow, look at you, you're fat, and now look, you have whatever, told you so," and the "if only I was thin, this wouldn't have happened," running around our heads. But we don't need to feel the shame, right? When we educate ourselves on what causes these things, I mean, it's just bananas to me. So for example, okay, so Hayes Health Sheets, so HAES healthsheets.com. If you don't know this website, you need to get there. I've mentioned it a few times on the podcast. It's amazing. And it's like, what the heck? You know, type 2 diabetes. Well, everyone knows that's caused because you're fat and you've eaten too much sugar. Oh, let's have a look. Type 2 diabetes, what causes it? A number of factors can contribute to an increased risk of type 2 diabetes, including weight cycling, yo-yo dieting, and internalized weight stigma. But type 2 diabetes is predominantly a genetic condition. Let me repeat that. Predominantly a genetic condition. While much fatphobic misinformation floats around, you cannot eat your way into type 2 diabetes. And it affects people of all sizes. Getting type 2 diabetes isn't your fault. It does not indicate that you have done anything wrong. It is simply a fairly common health condition. Oh, what's that now? Oh, that's very strange. That's not, you didn't cause it because you're so fat and greedy? Oh, let's have a look at another one. PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. What is it? What causes it? While there is still a lot that we don't know about the causes of this condition, PCOS is a complex genetic trait with 70% heritability. Environmental factors that interact with genes also likely play a part, including in some cases in utero exposure to higher than average levels of androgens. Insulin resistance is an important underlying mechanism in the development of PCOS symptoms. People with ovaries on testosterone are more likely to have PCOS. And so, okay, so it's our fault that we have PCOS. Oh no, it isn't. And to treat it, you need to lose weight, right? No. How is it treated? Medications, supplements, and some nutritional interventions, increasing protein with meals, might be helpful. Oh, well, that's weird. That's very strange. What? Okay, what about sleep apnea? Obstructive sleep apnea. That's definitely because people are fat, right? Okay, so what causes it? There are several causes of obstructive sleep apnea. Decrease in upper airway muscle function, structural upper airway factors. That includes craniofacial structure, which is often hereditary, soft tissue structure, including tongue size, pharyngeal walls, and soft tissue of the neck, often hereditary, fluid in soft tissues of the neck caused by medical conditions. Oh, so hang on, it's not because people are so fat and horrible. Oh, weird. Right. And so that's Hayes Health Sheet, the library there. You can just go check it out. It's incredible. I love it. Link in the show notes, obviously. Everything that I talk about, there's always going to be a link in the show notes. If you want the show notes specifically for this episode, it's fiercefatty.com/093. If you forget the episode number, you can just go to /podcast and you'll find it right there. So if you are fat and are also disabled or have a chronic condition, being told to just love yourself, just go ahead and love yourself, okay, is not helpful. We have internalized fat phobia and ableism. We have a ton of shame and blame. And we have a world that echoes those feelings right back at you. And so, yeah, saying just love your body ain't gonna help, right? It's not gonna help. We need to embrace those feelings of sadness, of anger, of pain, of frustration about how we feel about what our bodies are able to do or not able to do. And move towards those feelings instead of kind of just trying to push them down because we should just love our body, right? We should just get on with it and just wear a bikini and shut up and don't worry about it, and think about all of the things that your body can do. Well, yeah, I mean, no. I mean, like, if you really examined it and you've gone through and done a ton of work on this stuff, then maybe you can get to that point. But using that point as a starting place, I don't think is helpful for most people. And I think what is helpful is acknowledging that living in a society that is super ableist, super fatphobic, and then trying to learn to love and accept your body is really fucking hard. And so I just want to acknowledge that if you are struggling with accepting your body, and you're disabled, or you have a chronic condition, then it's kind of like, I'm not surprised, right? I am not surprised. And with the chronic conditions that I have, can be so frustrating. Why, body, are you not just being like other bodies and just doing this? And when you're, experiencing the shittiness of having a chronic condition, like the ones I have, or a disability, or both, and if you have other marginalized identities, it's hard and it's exhausting, and the whole world is just echoing all of those feelings that you have inside about yourself. But just an FYI, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You don't need to feel that shame if you have shame about being fat and having a chronic condition or being disabled. That's not your shame to carry, okay? So, all right, well, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. By the way, my fucking phone and second laptop also failed. What is going on? So my old laptop that has never failed, well, it probably has, but is reliable, is so reliable, crashed halfway through this. And so again, the audio is going to be weird because my phone was recording and then that one crashed. And so I've had to record this outro from the diabetes thing again. It's getting on my fucking flaps. It's getting on my tits. I'm going to have to buy a fucking camera or something. I don't have to buy a camera. Why? I've got this technology here. Why is it not working? Oh. Anyway. Okay, well, thanks for hanging out with me today. You stay fierce, fatty, and I will see you in a while, alligator. Thanks for listening to the episode. And if you feel ready to get serious about this work and want to know when the doors open to Fierce Fatty Academy, which is my signature program where I teach all about how to overcome your fatphobic beliefs and learn to love your fat body, then go to fiercefatty.com/waitlist. Again, that is fiercefatty.com/waitlist to get your name on the waitlist for when Fierce Fatty Academy, my signature program, opens.